Hello and welcome to the video. This video is about these things here, sub 250 gram quadcopters. Well, this is one class of them, but that's what I want to talk about. This is the model that I actually have got in to do a review on. This is the Scorpion 80. It's a very satisfactory little quadcopter, plastic construction, has a little battery in it, FPV, enclosed props, 2S, so it's you know, slightly too much power for indoors but not enough for outdoors, and only a couple of minutes of flight time. And you kind of have this class which seems to be kicking around at the moment, which is the kind of, I'll call it Whoop style class for shorthand. And then you also have what I would consider kind of serious 250 gram quads. This is the Armattan Gecko that I built. I'll put a link to the series where I did this. This is a little 5-inch quad shrunk down. Even has a little run cam split in it to record in HD, and that is just under 250 grams if you're careful with all your cables. There's other things like the ViFly X150, there's also things like the EMAX TinyHawk, so there's lots of different choice, and I think it's a little bit overwhelming if you're coming into the hobby, or maybe you had a 5-inch quad and you don't want to do the registration, or you're unable to fly. What's the best option for you out of all this cornucopia of choice that we have now in the hobby? Because everyone's kind of jumps on this bandwagon, and a lot of them are okay, but some of the ones that I have looked at here, and I'm very fortunate I get to play with a lot of this stuff, have really blown me away, and there's a reason that they're still on my shelf and they haven't quite made it into the prize pile to be given away to other people. So in this video, let me go through and give you kind of my top choices. Caveat before we start, every pilot has their own particular way where they enjoy the hobby, so be aware of that. I am coming from a 5-inch racing background. In fact, there's another one behind me that I'm going to be flying, the battery's ready to go. So that's my experience, that's what I'm enjoying. So I'm coming to these more from a 5-inch quad coming down to it rather than a 1S TinyWhoop and moving up. So keep that in mind. I'm looking for an experience with a quadcopter that's easy to fly. So the 250 gram limit as well also includes the battery, so I'm taking that into account. So everything that I'm going to talk about in here is going to be under the 250 gram limit if that's important to you. So there are a couple of things that I'm looking for in a model. The first is that I want to fly for more than 2 minutes at a time. I've mentioned this in the review of the things like the iFlight 77R. It's a really lovely model. I just want to fly longer. I'm just kind of, you know, getting it all locked in and starting to enjoy myself when I have to land the thing. Bigger quads with kind of a 3-inch or a 2.5-inch prop size tend to be a lot more efficient in the way they move the air. So the batteries that you can get in them tend to be a little bit bigger, and that means a longer flight time. That's really important to me, and that's part of my reasoning behind some of the choices that I'm about to make. I'm also interested in things like build quality. It has to be well put together. I don't want something that's been thrown together on a Friday afternoon before somebody goes down to the pub, and some of the models that I've had in here definitely feel a little bit like that. I want to see good soldering joints. If it's a ready to fly model, I want Betaflight all set up. I want it tuned. I want there to be some kind of resilience, so if you do crash, the arms don't immediately snap off. These things you'll tend to find that, well, I do anyway, once you're flying them, you will tend to try and fly through gaps that you wouldn't with a 5-inch quad, and that's for two reasons. One, they're physically a lot smaller, but also when they do hit stuff, they tend to bounce off it rather than snap props and bend motor shafts and snap arms. And for me, I'm interested in a model that's really good at one thing. So things like this EMAX TinyHawk was amazing indoors and had enough poke to fly outdoors as well. Things like this model here, the iFlight, and things like the Scorpion 80 are kind of average at both. They're kind of overpowered for indoors and they're kind of underpowered for outdoors. So I particularly like to have something that's really good. So for this, I'd never fly this indoors, well, unless it was in something like a blooming big sports hall, but it's amazing for outdoor flying. So with that said, let me talk about what answers I tend to give when people come up and ask me this question. First one is, for indoor quads, what should I get? Well, if you are wanting to learn to fly and you want to get into the hobby relatively inexpensively, then I still think that the Hubsan model, the I'll put a link for everything I'm talking about in the description. The Hubsan stuff is fantastic. You get the radio with it, you get a little quadcopter. It might not be the most advanced or sophisticated thing, but you can have a go at flying it around. I actually learned an awful lot of my nose in and advanced kind of hovering line of sight stuff with one of these over a winter. And so you don't have to break the bank. You can get one for 30, 40 pounds now, including the little radio bits. All you have to do is you have to find a couple of AA batteries, the little chargers in there for the battery that pops inside it. It's really fun to fly, super stable, and a great way to get into the hobby. But for me, if you already have a radio that you can bind to it, so you already have something like a Tyrannus that's behind me or one of those kind of radios, then the two I would look at, the TinyWhoop or the close TinyWhoop clones. Those kind of brushless 2S models are really, really fun to fly. There's a reason why the TinyWhoop phenomenon has become such a big thing. They're really, really fun models, super stable. The props are enclosed like the Scorpion 80, and you can fly around, and it actually flies for a reasonable amount of time, which again is one of my particular needs. The other model that I would recommend if you want to get into this, out of all of this class that I have tried, still to be the one on the top of the list for me is the EMAX TinyHawk. The EMAX TinyHawk, I gave it away as a prize a while ago, and I'm kind of kicking myself because it was such a fun little model. If you want to just explore indoors, it's beautiful. The way it's built, the way it's set up, the way it survives crashes. I personally haven't found one that has topped that off my #1 slot. If we talk about flying outside, if you want to fly in your local flying field or zoom around the local playing park or whatever it is that you want to do, then I think there are better options than these kind of hybrid things that are trying to be jacks of all trades, because I'd rather have a model that's supremely good at one thing, and I'd rather have like a TinyWhoop for indoor flying and maybe one of these models for outdoor flying. So of the three that I would recommend, the EMAX Babyhawk. The EMAX Babyhawk is fantastic. I still have this one. This is the 3-inch version. There's a 2.5-inch version. I saw one of these at the, I think it was Mini Air Show 5 just over a year ago. So I've had this one about a year and was blown away. I thought it was a bit of a toy, but you know what? It really isn't. It flies fantastically well. It's got a little 500 milliamp hour 3S battery underneath. I'll get about 5 or 6 minutes flight time on that, less if I'm flying it like a hooligan. This is the one where we actually put the new RunCam camera in it, so the camera's even nicer, and it just is fab. It's really quiet, really responsive. The FPV works really nicely, and it just gives you that kind of 5-inch feel. And it's pretty bulletproof. I wouldn't run it indoors because they expose props, but outdoors it's a really great choice. The next, my #2 for when you're interested in this is this. Now this isn't a new model at all. This is my ViFly X150. Now I looked at this ages ago, and it's a little bit old-fashioned looking. You've got kind of, you know, the oil rig construction, the big post pillar thing in the middle, that we don't tend to have things like that these days. But the prop size, if I just grab, there we go. See, the prop is even bigger. This flies really, really nicely. It gives kind of that real 5-inch kind of feeling to it. It has a proper BNC connection for whatever kind of FPV antenna that you want. Again, what am I running this on? I'm running it on a Nanotech. Oh, an 850. I wonder where my other one had gone. I've got loads of these batteries. I tend to use them in one of my flying wings. Little 3S pack, and it's fab. Absolutely fantastic. Proper little FPV camera. It's got a little FR Sky receiver at the top. Really, really good fun. If you can find these, get one of those. Both of those are similar kind of price points. This is an awful lot more expensive. This is the Armattan Gecko. Now this Gecko, I'm running this on a Ministar 650 4S battery, but this little model is great. It actually feels like somebody has a 5-inch model and just gone and made it a lot smaller. The way this goes together is fab. It's got titanium parts. With a battery, it is bang on 250 grams. So if you're a bit smart with how you do your cable runs, and you're a bit smart with how you do your construction, you can get that under 250 grams and it will look, feel and fly very much like a 5-inch quad. Last choice for flying outdoors is actually that EMAX TinyHawk again. Sounds a bit weird, but on a calm day, that is just as much fun for me as the Babyhawk. So those are my choices. If you are looking for a quadcopter less than 250 grams, if you want to fly indoors, I would go for something like a Hubsan X4 if you've never flown before. If you have flown before, I would go for one of the classic TinyWhoops. At the power whoops and the whole CineWhoops and all that stuff, for me, leaves me a bit cold. That's not what I particularly enjoy in the hobby, although loads of people out there do, and I'm pleased that they do. But for me, it doesn't tick that box of longer flight times. And if you want to fly outdoors, then any of these three I think would be really good choices. So you have the good old Babyhawk, you have the X150, and you have the beautiful but relatively expensive Armattan Gecko. But if money is no object, this would be the one that I'd go for. So hopefully that helps those of you that are thinking about getting into the sub 250 gram market. It doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice performance, quality or enjoyment. But personally, I would go for something that's either dedicated and good indoor flying, or dedicated and really, really good at outdoor flying, rather than trying to get something that's a little bit of a hybrid for the two. Because in my experience, they are jacks of all trades and masters of none, and that ultimately leaves you a little bit unsatisfied at the end of the battery. So with all that said, I think we need to find a new home for this Scorpion 80 model here. So if you would like to go into the prize draw for this particular model, then please like the video, leave a comment down below, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll pick a name out of the hat in a couple of weeks. So thank you for watching right to the very end and finding that we actually have a giveaway here as well, and good luck to everybody who enters the draw. Thanks for watching the video and watching right to the very end. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you like the video and like what I'm doing here, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon too. If you really like what I'm doing, you can go the extra mile and become one of my Patreons for access to me directly for support, and also giveaways and regular updates too. If you're looking for particular content, then check out the playlist. I organise all of my videos into playlists, so if you're looking for a particular topic, you can find everything here. If it's called Introduction To, it's designed to start very simply and build on that simple introduction to teach you all about it. If it's called For Beginners, then that is really aimed at people who are brand new to that part of the hobby. You can also search on YouTube for anything that you're interested in using the search function at the top. So iNav Painless 360 will find all of my videos and even the playlist around iNav. So thanks again for watching and happy flying.